Happy Saturday and welcome to the Weekend Wellness Hour. Today, I have a relatively new friend as a guest here with us, and we are going to be exploring the ways that you can change your cooking to include and incorporate more plants into your meals. I know this is something that hits home very much so for me because I was on a journey several years ago on how to even cook and then how to incorporate plants into my cooking. And so we have with us Lisa Lyne, who's a chef, a holistic health coach. She's a gardener, storyteller. She is well-versed in the gym. She's a reader. She has done a lot. And so I'm going to let Lisa share with us a little bit more about herself. But thank you again for joining us today, Lisa.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Nice to be here.
Wonderful. So how did you get into vegan cooking, and kind of tell us a little bit about your background? Because I know you have some training in culinary arts.
I'll kind of go backwards a little bit because I started that particular thing. I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition in New York City and spent, 8 months there once a month for a weekend learning from people like Deepak Chopra and Dr. Andrew Weil and just all these like luminaries of health, right? And at the same time, I was doing a culinary program I'm from upstate New York originally. I was doing that in upstate New York at home. That was also about an 8-month program where I was in the kitchen 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, learning stuff. Learning how to cook. And those two worlds kind of smooshed together. The vegetable thing came later. That's why I'm doing this, doing a little bit backwards. I moved to the Pacific Northwest 9.5 years ago. And during that time, people are like, so, what brought you to the Pacific Northwest and to Portland? And I'm like, I wish I had a better story, but I said, my now ex-husband. So everyone's like, oh, I'm like, I know. Yeah. And I've always been very vegetable oriented. I love vegetables. I love salads and potatoes, everything about it. And I was in a space with people and racks of ribs and just all kinds of stuff. And after the divorce, I'm like, why am I buying meat? So I stopped. Mm-hmm. That, for me, that's simple. Not
just
simple for everybody, but simple for me.
Yeah.
And then I still was eating fish and shellfish and things like that. And sushi is like my one great love and thing I probably miss the most. Mm-hmm. But then finally I was like, you know what? It's no good for anybody in terms of creatures. It's no good for any creature that I eat them. So I just was like, I'm done. And that was almost 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that's how kind of I came full circle with that. And now I concentrate and do all my cooking as vegan based. Sometimes some cheese falls in, it happens. Especially during the pandemic, I'm not quite as strict, but overall I definitely am.
Yeah. And we know, I've read a lot and listened to a lot of different gastroenterologists that what you put in your body, especially plants, that determines your nutrient status, it determines your gut microbiome. There are so many things that impact. So besides, trying to, it's good for the environment, it's good for a lot of animal species out there, because when we harvest a lot of animal species, it's hard for them to recover. We've done a great job with conservation on, some of the bigger species like deer and that, but some of the smaller things, especially in the oceans, we haven't been so successful at. So It's nice to shift our eating habits to, more plants that we can regenerate.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that. I was just thinking about that with the fish thing, because I thought, well, fish, it's different somehow. And it's actually worse. And then just recently I watched the movie My Teacher Octopus, or My Octopus Teacher. And I will never, ever touch an octopus or fish again after seeing that movie, because I saw an octopus be lovey and cuddly and sweet. So that was just, I'm like, done. Totally never ever, because I've had moments, but that kind of sealed the deal for me.
Yeah. And luckily you had a little bit of culinary experience, so you kind of know how to cook before you switched. Now, someone from my background, I grew up on TV dinners. How much sugar can I get into a meal? And never having cooked in my life, I didn't even know how to boil water, going into my 20s. And it wasn't until my late 20s and 30s when I started having to shift how I eat, because I was getting all the health problems from eating that way for the first 25 years of my life. So I had to switch, and I was terrified. I'm like, oh my gosh, either it's either medication or eating plants. Now what do I do? And so when people come to you, how do you help them with some of that overwhelm? Like, what are some of the things that you say to them?
Gosh, that's a really good question. But I'd say it's not that hard. I mean, it really isn't that hard. And I think a lot of people, you can do this. If you can read a recipe, if you can, Google, everything's on the Googles now. So you can just go there. But what I found is, like, I don't cook fancy, to be honest with you. I don't, if there are too many ingredients, I'm like, no, not doing it. Just not going to happen. I want it to be done quickly. I don't want it to be very involved. I mean, there's sometimes where I make things that are kind of super special, but that's not super often. So really, what I tell people to do, there's like the whole thing about batch cooking and doing things, but you know what, if you want more vegetables in your life, probably the easiest thing to do is take a vegetable that you like, or try something that you've never tried before, chop it up, add a little olive oil, throw it in the oven for like half an hour at 400 degrees, and roasted vegetables are a savior.
Yeah, and they taste great.
And they taste awesome. You can do potatoes and broccoli and onions and, don't do kale. But you can do so many different things. And then you have like this, you can throw it in the fridge. You can put it in, something, you can put it in a salad. You can put it in a stir fry. You can put it in make a street taco. It's so easy. So that's just one way of doing it. Also, always just having certain things ready. Like if you make rice or you have a rice cooker, I bought one for like $20 at Target like 5 years ago. Make a batch of rice and have that on hand so you can mix it with vegetables or a protein. And it's not hard. You can do this, people. I really feel like everyone can do this.
That's good. So,
and again, the recipe is fun. You may find you enjoy it.
That's true. I mean, it's now as a form of relaxation for me in the evenings. It's like, okay, I can chill, and it's kind of decompress time, and then just cook. So one of the biggest things I hear, which I'm sure you hear, is I'm not going to get enough protein. So can you dive into that? So I have my things I say to people. I'm curious, what do you say to people though?
Well, after I say for the love of God, but no, I appreciate it. I think that we as people, as humans, have been misinformed about how much protein you need, because you really, as a sedentary person, a man needs 56 grams. If you're a woman, you need 46. If you're an athlete, you need a little bit more. Okay, you don't have to eat 10 steaks and a chicken to get that protein. I tell people too, I mean, there are everything from beans and lentils and tofu, whether they like it or not, seitan, I would say that wrong, and also even plants. Kale has protein in it. So it's just a matter of thinking a little bit differently. But again, it's all out there and it's readily available. It's not like you have to go to some fancy, crunchy granola store to get this stuff. It's in your regular grocery.
Yeah. And that's what you said is so important. Most people don't realize all the vegetables and fruit that you eat, they all have a certain amount of protein.
Right.
When you add it all up, it's enough for your daily count. I mean, there are so many athletes out there. I believe it was the US heavyweight champion weightlifter who was in the last Olympics. Huge man. Huge. You wouldn't want to get in a fight with him.
Right.
He's vegan.
Right.
And it's like people don't realize that, and they say, well, I can't bulk up, because they'll hear about ultra marathoners like Scott Jurek, who's a vegan and he's skinny as rods. But when you look at the heavyweight champion, huge man, he is plant-based, and they all talk about how their performance was enhanced by eating more plants. It's just, you get those nutrients.
Yeah, what a perfect segue into the movie we were talking about earlier. There's a movie out there called The Game Changers. And it's all about high performance elite athletes who are all vegan. And the strongest man in the world is vegan.
It's incredible.
And he And some people are like, oh, you're strong as an ox. How do you just eat, plants? And he's like, what does an ox eat?
Good point.
And so if you need to when we were talking earlier, I was saying, I don't like the movies that are kind of scary and show the abuse of animals. Like, we all know if we're intelligent human beings, we know what's happening. We know what's going on. I found the Game Changers to be informative and interesting and funny sometimes. Well, we were also talking about I'll just leave it. I won't say what I was going to say. But I really highly, highly recommend it. If you've got 90 minutes, during, for an afternoon matinee or an early, evening movie, watch this movie. Yeah. It'll change how you think.
Yeah, and I think it's also good, even if someone doesn't want to go completely vegan or plant-based, it's good to know the other side of the coin. So often we're kind of on one side of the coin. We don't want to see what's on the other or understand the other side.
Right.
But if you're like on the edge of that coin, you're looking at your current views, but then you look at, okay, what is the other side saying? It brings you a more openness, and you might say, okay, well, maybe one day I'll give it a shift and try plant-based, even if it's not for you right now. And maybe you can do it one day a week where you have meat and the rest you do, all plants. And so there's so many ways to shift your world and try it out for yourself. So that leads me another question to you. So what do you do about this whole hunger thing? Everyone says, when I eat a salad, I'm hungry in an hour. I'm not satiated. Yes.
That's funny because if all you eat is lettuce, you're going to be hungry. And you asked what helps make this transition easier. You do have to be more intentional and creative in how you approach food. For me, a salad isn't just lettuce and some tomatoes. My salads are like hearty and robust. And I throw in like essentially anything that I find in the fridge, I throw into a salad. So right now we have 5 raised bed gardens in our front yard, and we have kale. And so I'll get some kale and I'll massage it with some salt, and that will be my base. And then I'll put in rice and beans and carrots and tomatoes, and then use I call it my magical garlic drizzle that I put on most of my salads and things. And it's hearty. It's like, I have never been hungry in terms of after I've eaten a meal, never.
That's good. And you have 3 square meals you eat twice a day, or are you a nibbler? Kind of, how do you structure it?
For me, I'm like a 3 square kind of gal when I think about it. Every once in a while, if I won't do breakfast, it's funny when people talk about intermittent fasting. I'm like, so you just skip breakfast. That's all it is. I mean, overly simplified, but that's really all it is. But, I will have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and sometimes snacks. And I drink too much wine, plain simple. Right now, especially, I drink way too much wine.
Getting your grapes.
Yeah, I'm getting it's called resveratrol.
Yeah, it's the resveratrol or something like that. Yeah.
There's something in grapes that's really good for you. So I'm sure the wine is helping me enormously.
Yeah. So let's kind of segue into the whole vitamin topic. So we know that in plants, you can't get vitamin B12. So what are some of the ways that you get vitamin B12 that you recommend to others?
That's like the one, I've done my bits and pieces of research and looking at vitamins. And we also had talked earlier, I also have MS. And so they talk about certain vitamins, like vitamin D, for example, is very helpful for someone who has whatever it is I have. So when you're going, being vegan, the B12 is like the main one. I mean, there's other ones you could add. You could add, flaxseed oil and vitamin D and magnesium and things like that. B12 one, I think, is the most important. To be honest with you, though, right now I'm not taking any supplements. Is that okay to say? I just said it anyway. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I think what it was too, I was looking for a vegan vitamin, and there's a ton of them out there now, which I'll have to remember to send you links to those. But there's a couple of companies, I think one is called Hippo actually, which is just vegan vitamins. Has all the things that you can diet in one vitamin. So it makes it very simple, because taking a lot of pills is just gross. I mean, it's not fun. It's not interesting. You forget. But this one company that does the one vitamin, I think, is worth it. So that you make sure all your boxes are checked. And this is actually inspiring me to actually go back to doing that, because I have taken vitamins. I just got lazy.
Yeah, and I know there's a whole debate. Well, if you're eating all the plants and stuff, why do you still need to take vitamins? And I hear, I've talked to naturopaths before who say, well, your gut doesn't always absorb all of those nutrients of the food you eat. And I know I'm a culprit of this, that when I was doing a lot of back-to-back racing, I mean, 100 miles, 50 miles, like back-to-back weekends, I didn't chew my food. I was just inhaling my food.
Right.
And I never felt like I was getting enough nutrition. So I'd eat more and more and more. And I couldn't figure out why I'd gain weight. And it was because I wouldn't slow my eating down to chew my food so I could digest it. So in that case, I did need extra supplements just to give me that, because I wasn't eating properly to be able to digest the plants, because plants do need to be chewed. I mean, pretty much any food, but if you have the more processed food, you can just kind of suck it down and, it's already broken down. But a lot of the plant-based stuff, you have to chew it to break down the fiber and so you can absorb it correctly.
Right.
So, in that sense, I can see why, depending on your eating habits, you may or may not, have to do the supplementation. But right now we're all looking to boost our immunity. So a lot of physicians are suggesting it right now.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, that, like I say, I think when you get like that one multivitamin that's a vegan, for me, a vegan multivitamin like that, I think that's ideal, because then you don't have to worry about it. You just take it, when you get up in the morning. That's good. You're all good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So with people who miss meat, what are some ways to get around that you have found?
Well, if you lived in Portland, Oregon, where I am, there is, we have tons of vegan restaurants, tons and tons of vegan restaurants. And a lot of them, there's a couple of companies here who make vegan-based meats that they're sold to these restaurants. That's a whole other story, but there are so many right now, especially because of what's going on in the world right now, is that so many companies are coming out with plant-based meat substitutes, whether it's the Impossible Burger or the Beyond Burger or Light Life, or even like Kroger, where I go, they have their own line now of hamburger ground beef patties. Wow. And they're really, we have those maybe once a month, because you feel like, you smell the neighbors grilling. So you're like, oh, it still smells good. I mean, I should be more, oh my God, no, it's like, it still smells good. So we'll do that occasionally. There's so many products these days that are plant-based meat substitutes that you can enjoy. Do I recommend doing that all the time? No, because it gets expensive. Expensive, and it is processed. And if you're going to do vegetables, do a vegetable, do beans, do things that happen and occur naturally more often than not, is my 10 cents on that one.
Yeah, because it's also, when things are processed, even if they're vegan, you've basically killed the whole plant life that you were seeking. Right. And now you have this mixture of dead plants that you're now cooking again to, feed yourself. So you're not really getting as much of the benefits to your gut microbiome that you would if you're eating the plant in its full capacity. Right. I know, do you ever use mushrooms for like chilies and stuff? Does that help?
I use a lot of mushrooms. I would use a lot of actually, I just signed up with this one service called Life Circle. I can't remember what it's called, but anyways, there are all these different kinds of mushrooms and things that you can do with mushrooms, and they aren't very hardy. I mean, what's interesting, sometimes people be like, "Oh, have a portobello mushroom steak instead of a steak." Okay, a mushroom is never going to be meat. Okay, and if you go in expecting that, you're going to be disappointed, aren't you? I mean, it's not ever going to be that, but you know what? It's still delicious. Yeah. So I mean, there are all kinds of things that you can do to do your own meat substitutes: lentils, mushrooms, walnuts, pecans, things like that. I've made a faux gras out of mushrooms and walnuts and just different spices, and it's close enough. Okay. Yeah, it's close enough. I mean, I have to admit, I used to be that food person, especially when I was spending time in New York. I go to all the best restaurants and I would be eating steak tartare. I was eating foie gras. I was eating lamb. I was eating cute meat. And so, fortunately for me, I don't miss it that much. But I know if something is close enough or good as like, I don't eat a hot dog anymore. Like a pretend hot dog, not so good. No, I don't recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't explored all the different fake stuff out there. I kind of stick with the plants, and I'll try to make things. Like I'll make fake taco meat. Sometimes I used to do it with tofu and walnuts and crush them both up and mix them together with a whole bunch of spices. And the other day I took really chopped up finely butternut squash and crushed walnuts, mashed it together, added a whole bunch of spices, cooked it in the oven. When it came out, it tasted just like taco meat. And I was like, okay, one way to get rid of tofu, add more butternut squash. It has all the anti-inflammatory properties out there. So why not go with that instead?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and it's not hard. It's not hard.
No, and it wasn't. And that's the thing. So what about cheese? We all have this cream dairy cheese kick. So what do you do for that?
The cheese thing is for some people who say, I could never give up cheese. I'm like, yes, you can. It's like, don't tell me you can't. I mean, I'm not like being like, judgy and mean about it, but I'm like, it's because you don't want to. And that's your choice. That's the whole thing for me. I'm not here to push the plant thing. For me, it was easy. But if you want to, you can give it up. And also there are, again, a lot of different producers of vegan cheeses out there. Miyoko is a lovely woman who makes everything from proper like mozzarella and slices and shreds to BioLife does it. You can go to your grocery store and go to your vegetarian vegan section and you will find half dozen or more options for cheese. Some of them are better than others. You can also make cheese at home. I make at home a vegan Parmesan, which is, I think, better than regular Parmesan. And all it is either raw sunflower seeds or raw cashews. I just went to the raw sunflower seeds because they're like a third of the price, right? Yeah. But all it is those, and then you whir it up in food processor or blender. So it's sunflower seeds, nutritional yeast, garlic powder, salt. Done.
So now this may be a little shock for you. Please describe nutritional yeast. Oh, gosh, many people don't know what that is. When I was first on this journey, I said, "What is that? What are you talking about? How do I get it? Where do I find it? What is it?" So can you touch base on it?
I've got to write that down because I don't technically know the actual makeup of nutritional yeast, but it's not like the yeast you put in bread. Right. And you can pretty much find it everywhere now. I mean, Bragg's makes it, Bob's Red Mill makes it. Here, Winco, big giant box store that was super cheap stuff. They have it in their bulk section.
Okay. Nice. And what does it look like?
And it's a very powdery. It's very powdery and it's kind of dusty actually. When you scoop up, you get dust. And but I put it on popcorn and it's like cheese. It gives a cheesy element to things. That's really what it is. Is that kind of carries it over into making something a little more cheese related. And it also has B12 in it. Right. So right. It's not expensive. And like I said, you can find it anywhere. These days, most grocery stores have the basic vegan, vegetarian stuff that you need to like adopt that lifestyle.
Yeah, that's true. And how about eggs? What do you do for eggs, both in cooking, like omelets, and what do you do for baking? Because I know there are substitutes for both of them in different ways.
There are, you know what? Okay, this is my true confession. I'm not a big sweets girl, so I have baked. Mm-hmm. I bake occasionally. I don't miss, like, I don't crave like cake and cookies and brownies and things like that. But, for an egg thing, there is, again, an egg substitute. There are a number of different ones. There's one called Just Egg, mm-hmm. which is really close. Okay. You can also, if you've got a tin of chickpeas in your pantry, the liquid off of that is called aquafaba. I hope I say that right. Yep. And a lot of people will use that as an egg substitute as well. Flaxseed, it can be used as a substitute. So there's, again, it's limitless. That's the whole thing. It's like you're not like stuck. Like if you choose not to do something, there always is. Yeah, there's always something you can do instead. Always.
Yeah. That's totally true. I know for Thanksgiving, one of the things that I was known for in my family is making a sweet potato casserole.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was the kind where you roast the sweet potatoes, you mash it, you add in cinnamon, nutmeg, and an egg, and then you put chopped pecans and brown sugar and cinnamon on top.
Mm-hmm.
And so before I became vegan, I did the egg. And then afterwards, like, oh no, what do I do for Thanksgiving? So I switched out and I did a flax egg where I took a tablespoon of, flaxseed ground to a pulp
Mm-hmm.
with some water, and you let it sit and it becomes that goopy egg-like substance. I put it in there. I didn't tell anyone. No one noticed the difference. And it looked and tasted just like everything before. And so, you have to kind of just take that little first step. And sometimes you need a whole afternoon to prepare yourself mentally to go ahead and try these new things.
Right.
But it does work out.
Yeah, it definitely does. Like like I said, there's never been a time where I haven't been able to find a substitute. Even if you're the fish thing, now there's a number of different companies that make pretend fish substitutes. Actually, one of our favorite things, there's a company called Gardein. I'm sure you've eaten their stuff. And they do a fishless filet, which is incredible. It's like that fish taco, you would not know. I had a friend post on Facebook. She's like, how is this not fish?
Yeah.
It's that good. Their crabless crab cakes are even better than real ones.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. That's always good to know because I've heard of that brand before and I probably had one or two of the other things, but I haven't tried all of those things.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot of brands are coming out and they have all the ingredients and it's just different plants that they've somehow mashed together. You don't have all these other chemical additives and it is so refreshing because then it's a little bit easier to go, okay, I have a late night. I'm going to grab that as a processed food meal, but I feel a little bit better because it's literally, there's no other chemicals in it.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's definitely, I mean, I have like Amy's like vegan frozen stuff in my freezer. I have, the Impossible Burger. I have things in the freezer that for those nights when you're like, oh, I may be eating popcorn and drinking wine that night too, but it's knowing that you can just like dip in there and get something. Also Indian food, any type of Indian pre-made stuff, easy because most of it is vegetarian/vegan. Most of it, not all of it, you gotta check, but you never, but it's totally, there's a reason not to, I guess, try it. Not pushing it, there's like no reason not to try it.
Yeah, and that's true. So you live in a place where there's a lot of vegan restaurants.
Yeah.
Last week I was in Ouray, Colorado for a volunteer trip. Let me tell you, I had one option. I ate Thai food for lunch and dinner for 7 days.
Oh God.
I was very sick of Thai food by the time I was done. I said, I don't even want to eat out ever again.
Right, yeah.
It was a great restaurant. Don't get me wrong, but they had two dishes. I was like, okay, this is what I'm alternating on. So, and they, and part of the reason I couldn't find any other food was during this pandemic time, all the hotels were completely booked, but restaurants are at 50% capacity. So they didn't have the means to, try to adjust things. They're struggling to find workers to fulfill the people that were having a sit down meal plus all the takeout orders. So I was completely understanding and grateful I even had any food. But let's say non-pandemic time, what are some of the recommendations you give to people when they're going to a restaurant that's not a one geared towards vegan food only?
Fortunately for us being in America, that we have so many ethnic choices. I mentioned Indian, Middle Eastern, Chinese, Korean, Ethiopian. All of them have vegan vegetarian options. And sometimes it's depending on how closely you tier things. A lot of Asian foods use fish sauce. So ask after that if that's a concern to you. But there are plenty of different options. There's pizza places. I mean, I think they're not here yet, but in England, I think Papa John's or Domino's, or one of the big chains, has vegan pizza. So if you're traveling internationally,
wow.
So it's just ask people, restaurants have become very accommodating to that, and they won't just serve you a piece of lettuce and like a carrot. That's not going to happen anymore. I think that there are many more people who are embracing this lifestyle, whether all the time or occasionally, or just even occasionally. Think about like how much better if one day a week, like the meatless Monday thing took off so well, is that one day a week you just eat plants. You can do that. Anyone can do that.
Yeah, totally agree. Completely. And, you know, it's good to experiment too.
Mm-hmm.
If you spend one day eating plants that's completely different from your normal diet,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? You're introducing a whole different type of gut microbiome. You're feeding bacteria differently that are going to help you, and you might like it, you might not, but it doesn't hurt to try at all.
Yeah, agreed. It's just, why not give it a shot? Just,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, worst thing is you don't like it. Okay, so that's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. So can we go through kind of maybe your day, like maybe give us some options on what you would consider a breakfast, vegan breakfast, a couple options for lunch, dinner, maybe snacks, just to give some people some ideas to get them going.
I think, well, for breakfast, you know, actually, avocado toast. Okay, in Portland, if you go out for avocado toast, you're gonna pay $10 for an avocado toast out. But you know, make it at home. Definitely get some avocado, an English muffin, some bread, any kind of bread, and avocado toast. And actually, a great resource for vegan food and things is Trader Joe's. And Trader Joe's has that everything but the bagel seasoning. You put that on your avocado toast. You put a little chili onion crunch on your avocado toast. I eat that every single day.
Yeah.
So that's just me. Also, I've discovered some recipes for savory oatmeal. I'm a savory girl. I mentioned earlier, I'm not big on sweets. Mm-hmm. So making oatmeal with nutritional yeast and sauteed mushrooms, for example.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Totally didn't even think about that.
Yeah, really, really good. If you're a Southern girl, I lived in Kentucky for 3.5 years. Using, like, making cheese grits with nutritional yeast and sauteing some green onion. So that's some savory options. A fruit bowl, oatmeal, vegetarian, vegan / yogurt. I mean, those are all really easy, simple breakfast things to do. Because actually, also when I first went vegan, trying to find a non-dairy creamer or a vegan creamer, one of my big challenges. Because they made them look like dishwater. It was just gross. But I finally found Silk soy creamer, and that has been my go-to, even though it's super hard to find right now, interestingly, just given circumstances.
Yeah.
And also, don't fall prey to it's the non-dairy creamers, because the non-dairy creamers actually have a sprinkling of powder in them. So you actually have to read the label to see what is really in there. Again, that depends on how far you're going to go with it, right? Lunch for me usually is soup or a salad. I mentioned that we have the garden, right? So I'll go get some kale and use that as a base and just toss everything, any vegetable I can find, any leftover I can find into that, and that's lunch. Also, I make a lot of soup. And that also, again, I'm not ever hungry because I put a lot of stuff in it. If I make soup, I made like this tomato soup, but I throw roasted corn in there. I throw some rice that I've made. I throw some sauteed arugula in there. So it becomes more robust. It becomes more hearty.
Right.
So that's lunch. I'm not a big snacker, but again, you know, crackers and fruit and, you know, granola. I think Kind bars are vegan. I'm not sure. Just like you have to search them out. But yes, snacking thing, popcorn. I mean, super easy. Tortillas, guacamole. I mean, again, there's no shortage. And then dinner can be is often a stir fry or something with noodles, because it's easy to incorporate and you can change it up with the sauce. I'm all about the sauce and the dressing. There's so many easy things that you can find on help you just kick things up a notch in terms of like whether you're making a stir fry or stir fry, or some of the noodles, or a pasta. So I'm very much about mixing things together. So that's how I exist and how I eat every day.
So do you have some easy sauces that you would recommend for people? Like, what do you use, oil base? Like, how do people start creating sauces?
Again, do the Googles. Definitely do the Googles. I have one sauce that I made that came from, it was a spaghetti carbonara recipe, and it had this, I call it my magic garlic drizzle sauce, because it's essentially, it's like making the vegan parm, but instead you add some oil. I'm definitely about oil. I know a lot of folks aren't.
Yeah.
But that would be one thing that I would look at, and it's just this really great garlicky goodness. You've got to thin it out a little bit with water because it's super thick. Magic green sauce that has avocado and pistachios and oil and goodness in them. So it just, I'll put it on anything. I don't care what I put it on. I'll put it on a salad. Okay, baked potatoes too. Okay, you want an easy lunch, throw a baked potato in the oven, in the microwave oven, for 8 minutes. Mush it all up, toss stuff on it, whatever, roasted vegetables, sauteed kale, whatever. That's lunch. That's good.
Yeah. It totally makes sense. This is great. Now, and you also have your own website, right? Where you have some of the recipes and creations that you've made, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I do. I think my magic sauces are on there. Yeah.
Okay. And your website is?
It's veganneverboring.com.
Right, because a lot of people think being vegan is boring, right?
Right. Well, it was funny that why I even came to that. I have someone he used to be my boss long, long time ago, and we became Facebook friends. And I remember I started posting my recipes and things on Facebook, and I said, vegan never, I said something like, I just never thought I'd see those three words together. And as a result of that, there came my website.
That's wonderful. That's great. So people can go there. Yeah. You have a recipe link. They can see some of your recipes. And is there a way that they can reach you if they have questions, or if they want some maybe instructions or help with cooking and changing their ways? How can they get a hold of you?
That's a good question. I need to look and see. I need to up my website. I started my website and then I let it go for a little bit. That happens. But
yes.
I will, because of this conversation, I will put something on there so that people can connect with me. And I would really like that. I would really enjoy that.
Yeah. Is there an email that you have right now that they could email you?
Of course. That's a good segue. It's my name. It's Lisa Lyne 85 at gmail.com.
Okay. And that's LISALYNE 85 at gmail.com.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Just in case, because and it's good to have people in our bucket of resources. So if we're looking to change our lives or explore something new, you're a great resource for getting someone started. You have the culinary background. You have an ease with food. You have, you garden, so you are very familiar with this whole world. So you're a great resource for people who have never done this. I would have loved to have someone like you in my world, back in 2014 when I said, okay, time to change my life. And, I know there's other people out there like that. And even people who are already, on that journey, you're still a great resource for them. So I just want to share that with them.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So is there any last minute words of advice or any tips or anything else you'd like to share that we didn't cover?
I think the one thing too is we were talking about this actually earlier too. It's not hard, and you know what? If you eat something or you do something, you don't have to be perfect. It's about the process. It's not about perfection. And we were talking about too that my husband and I are both essentially vegan veg, but my husband sometimes one day last week he bought a bucket of chicken from Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'm like, that's what his body wanted that day.
Yeah.
I mean, I need to appreciate and honor that. And it's not perfect. And he knows, I know, but you know what? He's doing it, 6 other days of the week. We're good. So again, I just a bit militant about it and a bit judgy about it. And wherever you are is the right place for you to be right now.
Absolutely. And it's nice when you don't have that pressure from someone or on yourself, it allows you to explore, and you're more likely to see how you feel. Okay, if I eat this, I feel this. And then you're like, okay, instead of beating myself up for it, I can just say, you know what, I learned a lesson. This is how this food makes me feel. And I can either do that again or shift another way. And I think that's important what you say about not being so militant and kind of just going with the flow and learning along the way. It's a journey.
Right. Yeah. Show yourself a little grace.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you for coming on with us today. We really appreciate that and sharing your experience and knowledge. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you. So thank you all for joining us today for the Weekend Wellness Hour. We appreciate your time. Hopefully you have a great weekend. Reach out to Lisa. I know she is ready for any questions that we didn't answer here today. And we will see you again next week. Have a great week. Bye, guys.
Bye.